Zach, can you address what that means for today's board, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I believe there's essentially a misunderstanding about the direction the board has given at the meeting, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I understood, and I believe staff understood essentially a misunderstanding about the direction the board has given at the meeting, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I understood, and I believe staff understood conversation with the direction the board has given at the mitigation, like a development agreement, be discussed, whatever specific terms could be involved in the parties, be discussed at the and then we've come back for today to, with the record still open, to hear additional evidence and to continue this proceeding. And that would be pursuant to the county's ordinance 11709-3. I believe that Mr. Clark understood that the board had closed public testimony and deliberated and issued a decision at the last hearing. And then because of that, he believes that written findings were due within 30 days. But that his understanding of what happened at the last proceeding does not reconcile with mine or what staff put forward.
And Madam Chair, I'm looking and Mr. Clark does have some objections to that, the procedure and how that went down. So he is agreeing with our legal and that business.
I know. Madam Chair, Mr. Gold, he does have a late exhibit, and I'll pass it out. It would be the exhibit 72.
Thanks, Monica. Okay, I've got the minutes from the last meeting, and I'm just going to double check that. Zach Wesley said, Commissioner White's suggestion to keep the record open is important considering there is still a dialogue going on between the parties and staff. And when we come back again, there will be a need for additional conversation about the conditions, and leaving the record open for that purpose will be beneficial. Following testimony, Commissioner Dale made a motion to continue the hearing to August 4th at 2, and it was seconded by Commissioner Van Beek. So there you go. Okay, thank you, Zach. That just is right out of the minutes too. So, okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start this. Greg? And this, I just wanted to read this too for some clarification. This is a public hearing to consider a request by the Trost Family Trust for a comprehensive plan map amendment and rezone. That is case numbers OR 2019-002 and RZ 2019-0004. Okay. Mr. Bullock.
Greg Bullock, 504 Bay Hill Drive, Nampa, Idaho. Good afternoon, Chairman White, Commissioner Dale, and Van Beek. Real quickly, I just want to kind of review our history, make a few additional comments, and save most of my comments for rebuttal at the end. If that's permissible. Okay. So about 18 months ago, I had a conversation with the landowner, Mr. Trost, and the conversation dealt with difficulties he and other ag owners, businessmen were having in finding housing for ag employees. And the question was, is there anything we can do? And I said, let's find out. And so we began to look at all the properties Mr. Trost owned and where might be a place that could do affordable housing with the intent of ag employees having a place that they can buy for themselves, own, and be able to operate some of their farming needs out of that residential. So we brought that forward. The Planning and Zoning Commission, well, we had the neighborhood meeting, there was no objection. There's about 4 or 5 people that showed up with questions. Proceeded to the Planning and Zoning, and their recommendation to this committee was denial with a 4-2 vote. One of the members lived there. My opinion was he should have reclused himself, which would have been a 3-3 vote. But having said that, that's the way it went. So we came before you and had several hearings, actually, on the basis of affordable housing. What emerged out of those hearings was the fact that Canyon County commissioners really began to see that we probably should participate, or there is a need to participate in affordable housing from the county's point of position. And so I've written down a few things that were said in those hearings. Commissioner White said, I hope anyone who needs affordable housing will be in a position to purchase these, not just ag employees. That this would be affordable housing for anyone. We can't just specifically say who, but there is a real need for affordable housing. And the response was that I hope anybody, not just ag employees, would be able to purchase in here and participate in affordable housing. Commissioner Dale stated he had recently attended forums on addressing the need for affordable housing and supported this project out of the basis that this was the site that would work, and the need is there, and we should actually have a part in that. Commissioner Van Beek opposed this, and in fact, in a later hearing, submitted her own exhibits in opposition, which, as I mentioned then, is the first time I've ever seen a commissioner do that. So Commissioner White and Dale, one made the motion, the other seconded and voted in favor of recognizing the need and potential responsibility to help with affordable housing here in Canyon County. So we do have a unique opportunity for two reasons. One is compatibility, because in this area, as you've seen through these hearings, 111 existing lots are contiguous to two sides of this 40 acres. And so I asked the title company to randomly pull from Sunny Slope 1 and Sunny Slope 2. I said, you pick them. I don't want to hand pick these, but I want you to pick out a dozen to 15 homeowners with dwellings in this 111 lot. And I want to know the size of the lots, and I want to know the value that the tax assessor has placed on these properties. So I received 14 of those, half of them from Sunny Slope 1 and half from the other. And here's the averages of what we found. The values range with a home on them, whether it be a trailer house or a mobile home or an older stick built. The least expensive out of these 14, total value was $59,800. The highest value was $251,500, which was something that was a manufactured home placed in 2004. The lot sizes, the smallest one was 0.15, which is just over 1/10 of an acre in a lot size. The largest lot out of these 14 was 1.15. So without looking at all of them, I just asked them to randomly send that to me. And what that tells us, with 23 more residents in this area of 1 acre, we're not really impacting the area that much more. The 111 that are already there with values substantially lower. So then we talk about affordability. Affordability is based upon the market study and what's happening. So I'd like to turn your attention to the exhibit that I just entered a few moments ago. This is really important. As we discussed, really the issue here is affordable housing. So what you have is a printout from multiple listing services under the criteria of all of the single family with acreages, active listings in all of Canyon County, in town, out of town, in case there's somebody that owns an acre in town. I'm talking the whole perimeter of Canyon County. I pulled up everything that's on the market that's active right now under $350,000, okay? There are 5. In the entire county, 5 listings. The first one for 286 is a mobile home on 1 acre north of Middleton, almost all the way to Emmett for 286. Second one, if you'll flip the first page to the second one, that is a move-on house on 4 acres that's still on the jacks on Locust Lane in South Nampa for $336,266. No well, no septic. You have to take it off the jacks, you have to put it on a foundation, you have to remodel it after you spend $336,000 to buy this, okay? The next one on South Kings is in an industrial acre, 1.1 acre, but it's a single family home, $339,000. The next one backs up to Cleveland Boulevard in Caldwell, 1.4 acres, $349,900. And the last one at 350 is on Little Freeze Out Road, almost to Emmett, 4.8 acres, 1,296 square foot home for $350,000. And that is all the acreages with single family residents available in Canyon County. We do have an affordable housing issue in Canyon County. So I went the next step. What's between 350 and 400? Well, there's one more. It's on Ustick and 10th and Caldwell, almost in the city limits of a 1 acre piece in the 375 range. What does that tell us? What do the facts tell us? We have an affordable housing issue, not only in Treasure Valley, but specifically outside city limits in Canyon County. What this really says is, if you don't want to live in a subdivision, you got to have over $400,000. So we're now only available housing is to the wealthy. I mean, you got to have a good income to afford more than $400,000, even at today's interest rate. So with the subdivisions that are out there, and I've done some of them, some dry ground up on a hilltop, good views, good 1 acres, have been very successful, didn't affect farming. They were good developments, but they're not affordable. One just sold for $1.2 million in Star Pass last week. $1.2 million on 1 acre on Star Pass Ridge on South Powerline Road. Okay, I did that 15 years ago. Well, that's good. Somebody capitalized on that. It's the right place for development. It's on dry ground. It's up on a hilltop. It gives views. That's what fits. That's what works. But now I'm looking to go the other extreme. There is nothing available in this county to purchase. And if you go in the city, you're going to get a 2-bedroom home, probably a 1 bath for $200,000. Okay. My neighbor put his house on the market at $60,000 more than I told him Friday. He got $30,000 above list in 24 hours off cash. That's the market we're in. So what are we going to do? We're going to tell the people who can only afford $250, $275 at the most that you just can't buy a house. And you're going to have to go rent for $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a month, which is more than you're going to make in a payment on this project. So it's all about affordable housing. It's not about trying to make a lot of money off a subdivision out in the ag area. It's the only place that I know of in Canyon County where we can do affordable housing because it's compatible with 111 lots around it, and because there's a gas station right there in the corner of Apricot and a restaurant right next to that. It makes sense. So the last hearing, we continued it because there was opposition from the LDS Church, which we've never seen before. In all the developments that I've done in and out of the county, not one opposition from the LDS Church. Suddenly, they weren't there for the neighborhood meeting. They got noticed. They weren't there at planning and zoning. They haven't been to any of our hearings until the last one. We get a letter from Temple Square in Salt Lake City opposing a 37-acre development in Canyon County. And then they have the legal representation from the church out of Boise who sends their attorney over to object to the project. I was out of town, wasn't here for the meeting. The idea was, let's get together and see what we can work out. So we did that. I got a hold of Mr. Heath Clark. I called him and told him who I was, that we needed to meet, and I would ask him to organize a meeting with some of the local people that are concerned about this from the LDS Church in the Sunny Slope area. Waited a week, no answer. I called him back. I said, Mr. Clark, I said, I haven't heard from you. Nobody's called me from the LDS Church to meet. I said, we're anxious to sit down, see what we can do to be good neighbors with this project and your orchard next door. He said, you know, I couldn't find anybody that would talk to you. I said, you're telling me that from your Boise office, there's nobody over here in Sunny Slope within the LDS Church who has all these concerns about this development that's not willing to sit down with TJ and I? I said, yeah, we don't have anybody. But he said, what I want to do is set up a conference call with our representative out of Salt Lake City. I said, okay, let's set it up. So we played ping pong for a good week, and we finally all agreed. Temple Square, City of Boise attorney, and TJ and I to have a conference call. So we all call in, and we wait, and we wait. And we get stood up by Salt Lake City attorney. Never does come online. But he sure does like to write a powerful letter in opposition to something that's going on in Canyon County. So Mr. Clark and TJ and I talked, and it became very obvious they're not interested in being neighbors. They're interested in just stopping the whole thing. And so at the very least, I said, you know, you've had some drastic demands in your original letter. I said, that's overreach. We're not going to do that. We're not going to give you a 100-foot buffer. I said, you can certainly buy it if you want to do that. And there was an interest there. Wanted a 6-foot concrete wall. I said, well, that's overreach. We're not going to do that. But I said, we are going to do what we do for the commercial area and the other residents in the area, and that is we'll put up a privacy fence that'll surround the whole thing, and that should help to at least mitigate some of the traffic that may go into that. But you've been next to 111 lots for 60 years, and you haven't had a problem. I don't think 23 more home sites is going to create that big a problem. There's also a natural barrier between this site and the orchard, and it's a big row of poplar trees. So there's some natural things there. We'll put up a fence there, but honestly, there wasn't a lot of desire to be neighborly in this thing. It was just how we can shut you down, and then if we don't win, we're going to probably do further legal action in some sort of appeal. So it didn't really go that well, but we agreed to put up a privacy fence, and that's about as far as it went. The other issue was, of course, all of the right to farm laws. There's no issue there. Anytime you have any kind of a project, everybody understands the enforceable and compatible right to farm laws, and there's no issue with any of that. That's basically a lot of things that they were looking for there. So other than this mass communication that has been sent through the LDS Church and their communication department, nothing's changed.
So, thank you, Mr. Bullock. So, in your opinion, there was no communication. We kept the last meeting open for you to have meaningful discussion and some give and take about the project, and there was none of that?
My opinion was there was no give from the LDS Church. They basically were wanting to just stop the whole project. And TJ would vouch for that. He was on the line as well. We began to go down through the list of things that they had, and I told them what an overreach a lot of those were. I said we would be willing to do a privacy fence. And I said, are you really not even, are we wasting our time? That's what I asked him, are we wasting our time? And he said, well, we'd like to see what concessions you would make. And that's as far as we went. Was
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I appreciate the information that Mr. Bullock brought forward. On those subdivisions, those 111 lots that you referenced in there, can you provide a date that those were platted or any information on that?
The county record show was 50s and 60s, I believe, Trish. That was in an earlier report.
Well, these reference 111 lots that surround it.
Yeah, that would be in the, I think those are older subdivisions, particularly the Sunny Slope Sub 1 and 2.
Right, that's what I'm referencing.
And that's also my understanding. So we really don't have anything for the current state as far as zoning and development that would represent the standards that we currently have in place for the county's comprehensive plans and findings of fact. That's my point.
But they still exist.
They exist, but they're outside of what we currently set standards for in subdivisions today.
But there's 111 lots there.
So I guess the question would be in follow-up is, if there are already someone's living on them, or there are some vacant?
You know, out of the 14 that they sent me,
No, the 111.
right,
Yeah.
I asked for just 14.
Oh, I see,
so
okay,
I
out of that
an average
111.
Out of the 111.
Okay,
And vacant lots are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I got 14 with dwellings, and she sent another 8 that are vacant lots.
Vacant lots.
Out of the 111.
Okay, so those, regardless of how long they've been there, they'd be buildable or usable on today's standards and that sort of a thing.
Do we have a map, Trish, or something showing
I don't know
proximity?
what exhibit he's referring to, or agendas.
Do you have a map, Jen, showing proximity?
Yes, Commissioner Van Beek. And then also to answer your question regarding when those were platted, they were platted in 1948 for Sunny Slope Subdivision number 1 and 1949 for Sunny Slope Subdivision number 2.
Thank you.
So on the screen is Exhibit 8 in your packet also, which shows Sunny Slope number 1 and Sunny Slope number 2 adjacent to the subject property, which is crosshatched.
Okay, so I need a minute to digest this.
Would you like me to go to the screen? Would that help?
Well, we have a pointer for you. I just need to here a minute. So the 111 lots, I can see where the Sunny Slope 1 and 2 are at. I understand where the top patch is at. And the 111 lots are represented within the circle, or are you, I'm asking Mr. Bullock if he can provide proximity for the 111 lots.
You want me to use your pointer?
Were you aware of that information, Jen?
As far as the 111 lots, Commissioner Van Beek, I'm assuming that what he's referring to are the lots contained within Sunny Slope 1 and 2.
So there's the project site. Okay. And there's Highway 55. There's Apricot. This is Sunny Slope 1, 1948. They have about 55 lots. There's Sunny Slope 2, 1949, with about 55 lots.
So the 111 lots that you're referencing are contained exclusively within Sunny Slope 1 and 2, is that correct?
Yes. Now, if you want to go over here a half mile, you have Pear Lane, which is only 5 or 6, maybe 7 years old. They got approval for 2 and 3 acre lots. I'm real familiar with that. I marketed them for a year. Right off the highway down Pear Lane, there's a brand new subdivision there. You can see those lots. But in reference to compatibility, for 23 1-acre lots on site, we're contiguous on 2 sides by 111 low-valued properties.
Where's the church?
The church property is right here. This is their orchard where it says subject property. That's the orchard.
That's the orchard?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question, Greg, following that. Does that orchard also abut Sunny Slope 2? Go on down to their property?
It does.
It does.
It does. It runs clear to, what's that road? Frost Road.
Okay.
So it's from the highway to Frost Road, and it's been contiguous to those 65 lots for 60 years. However, the church has owned it.
Madam Chair, and that's also shown on Exhibit 6. Committee map.
Okay.
And Sylvia's property and others.
Trish or Jen, can you provide the date that the LDS Church established their orchard at this location? That's not in the record.
With the old aerial there, I don't know how we,
Okay, I'm just trying to ask how long.
yeah, they it's an ag use, but
Okay.
we don't know what we could do.
And if you're signed up to speak and you know the answer, provide testimony to that. But you can't provide testimony until you're called forward and put your name and address on the record.
Okay. So any more questions for Mr. Bullock?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. TJ Wellard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. TJ Willard, 17842 Bend Hollow Road, Caldwell, Idaho, 83607. I think this project has been fairly well hashed and the facts have been put on the record. I don't think in the last maybe 3 hearings we've really had a whole lot of new factual information. It's just been a gathering of opposition opposed to this project. rather than fact-finding or anything new being presented before the board. A couple of things I wanted to touch on. So it really doesn't matter when these lots were platted. There's lots platted in the middle of Caldwell that were in 1905. There's still residentially available buildings. So whether they're zoned for residential is really not a fact of the matter in this case, because they're allowed residential whether they're zoned that way or not. So there are 111 lots in these two subdivisions that have the availability to get building permits on them. The other thing I want to touch on was just really about private property rights. I think a lot of people have taken for granted what America stands for when it comes to private property rights. And I think there is a place for zoning and for this type of process so that things don't go wild out of control. But I think we're following that process. And through this year and a half that we've had this project, that we followed that process. When the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had their attorneys write their letters in opposition to this project, it kind of struck me that how willing they were to trample on other people's private property rights when they wouldn't have that done to themselves. We're not going to them and saying, we're going to do something to your property, yet they want us to give up a 100-feet strip of ground that we couldn't do anything with our property to protect them. And so other than that, I think the facts of the case have all been well lined out here. I think Greg covered everything really well on what we've been proposing. And I think that's been pretty well understood. And I think with that, I'll just end for any questions.
I have one question, TJ, for you. And I don't know if Mr. Bullock will know the answer to this. I'm hoping. The question was raised to me why that Mr. Trost, he owns a lot of property in Canyon County and around, and a lot of it in the Parma area is okay. So far, the information, the question I got is accurate. Why here? Why didn't he put it somewhere by his place?
So, Madam Chairman, I think there's been, in some of those letters of opposition, people are like, well, he tried this somewhere in Parma, and I don't know that's the case. I've seen some of the ground that the Trost family does own, and it's not surrounded by subdivisions. If you look at the use of the ground, not the comp plan, not government's plan for the area, if you look at the use for the ground, on two sides, it is used as residential. On one side, it's used as commercial. On one side, it is a state highway. On one side, it is an orchard. So if you look at the use, this is the most compatible area of land that he owns to be able to put a project like this. And I think that would go to answer your question, why this spot.
Senator?
Yes.
I have just a statement of clarification, and for myself, I have engaged in conversations over the course of the last week or so, not specifically to this case, but to the private property rights issue, because I know that as a board, that's cited many times. We had a land use hearing where our development services director provided some clarification that I understand, I guess, in greater detail. And it's just this for the record, that private property rights are extended with the zoning that's established on the ground, the comprehensive plan. So let's say if you purchase ground in an agricultural area, you're entitled to the right to accompany an agricultural use for that ground. And so in that, if there's a request to change, then what basically that means is you're asking for additional rights. And then the board's job is to evaluate how compatible those rights and that change is, and whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that really is the question in my mind, and I appreciated our director's clarification on that. It helped shed a different light. So it is, you are correct, Mr. Rose, in that there are rights for both parties, but the purchase of that, when that ground was purchased, it was purchased with ag rights in a agricultural area along, maybe not directly, but along the scenic byway. So I think that that's an important clarification as we consider land use hearings that come in. It's the time, and it's the use, and it's the zone that it was purchased under. And that really made a significant difference for me in understanding, and that is just a statement of clarification for the record.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't know if that was really any question there, but you might have I respond.
Yes.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek, I completely understand what you're saying, and I think that's why we have this process in place is when you do buy property, yes, it may be under one zone, but you also have to think of compatibility with what the actual use is. Our comprehensive plan for Canyon County was written for 2020, and so we're at the end of our comprehensive plan. There will be a new one coming forward, which may completely change how the valley actually grew with that, or the county grew with that comprehensive plan, how it needs to change. So being at the end of it and starting a new one, I think that some of those black and white maps where you have, this is what we think this is going to be, this is what we think it's going to be, maybe changing based on, growth went this way instead of that way. And so I think, yes, we do have a comprehensive plan that we want to build around, but I don't think it's a black and white, we have to follow this, because that's not what the county is telling us where we need to go. So we have to be able to adapt, and I think that's why we have specific processes in place to be able to do that.
And Chair, I support what you're saying, and in the process of doing that, the diligence then would be on board to overcome the questions that are laid out to be answered. And because there was a denial, then the board would have to present evidence that overcomes at a greater weight, if you will, than what was presented as the planning and zoning, which is the not subjective, but the submissive governing power that provides information to the board. There would have to be a stronger argument to overcome that, to do the process exactly that you're talking about, and that has not been overcome.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek. So our proposal was for a comprehensive plan map change and a straight rezone. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial of that. We came before the board, and the board theoretically recommended denial of that because we've altered it to be a conditional rezone. So based on our proposal, it's actually changed to where we're going to put these conditions on this property to mitigate maybe some issues that the project itself would bring forward that allows it to move forward without the impact to the surrounding property owners. That's where the development agreement would come in, and which is why I was really upset that it wasn't even given a chance to discuss it with the opposition to maybe add some more conditions in there that would help mitigate any possible problems. And unfortunately, I don't think they were serious about mitigating anything. It was just shut us down.
Thank you. Thank you, TJ. Anything else?
No, so just to clarify, what I've heard is that there was attempts to have some constructive discussions with the primary opposition. Those were not highly productive. They did come out of it that you're willing to put up a site obscuring fence, which would help. That's what I'm understanding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Dale, we really discussed everything that was in their letter, and it was never put forward to us, any of that discussion, what conditions we can help. It was essentially, well, we really don't think anything's going to help. So I'm not really sure why they came up with those conditions. You guys read them. Some of them were really ridiculous. But we attempted to mitigate any concerns they had to no avail.
Well, thank you, Mr. Willen. I will say, too, that as we got letters from the public and other citizens and that sort of a thing, we put a lot of conditions on this in development agreement. I mean, and kind of, I sort of kind of went big time on that, but that was to address when the citizens would let us know what they were concerned or what this or that or something. So we said that privacy fences, we said everything had to be behind a fence. We said every lot has to have 2 trees and they have to have lighting, street lights, yard lights, whatever. However we said it all, we even said what size the trees have to be and all that sort of thing, because it's like, yes, we hear what the citizens have to say. It's difficult being on this side of the table. So we can address it with the development agreement and that sort of a thing. And that's why I'm sitting here right now, and I'm extremely disappointed because I did my best to address through a development agreement different concerns that I was given. Should this be okay for affordable housing? Now, I have a couple issues with it, but we'll get to that later. We have people here signed up to talk, but I'm just disappointed that there couldn't be some give and take and some, well, we could live with it if you did that, or that sort of a thing. So we'll hear from that side because Mr. Clark is here. So thank you.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say in regards to the statement from Mr. Weller that some of those are ridiculous. I have a married to a man in agriculture, and because of the advances that are done on that, and what we're talking about really is cross-pollination, brings up all the issues, and just the hybrid technologies that they're evolving. And then you have the entomology side of it where they have things in their fields that they're trying to either spray for or eradicate. So what I know in the limited amount of botany that I took is that even if you put up a 6-foot concrete fence, the male and female anatomy of certain species allows the wind to draft up and pollinate that. You won't overcome that even if you put that in there. So their unwillingness to consider that, given that there is potentially millions of pounds of produce worldwide that are on there. I just wanted to, I can't not say for the record that the large-scale agricultural production that feeds the world from that orchard, there's a reason that you are unwilling to do that, I believe, from my side of the table, because of the right to farm that exists there, and they want to protect that globally. So thank you.
Okay, Daniel, is it Bear? Daniel Bear. Name and address, please.
My name's Daniel Bear, 14665 Perfection Lane, Caldwell, Idaho 3607. Whenever I think of construction going up, I'm not opposed to development and things coming in. The thing that I think about when I hear new houses coming in is they're going to make things more difficult for what I am doing on the farm or what we are doing with the farm. When I talk to just whoever it may be, social media has created, and among other things, has created the hard thing with farming. Sorry. I think a big part with farming that people know is there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of chemicals, like we mentioned the chemicals a minute ago, and the pollinating and the wind that you're talking about. When I'm at the shed and I have a conversation with someone that comes off the road, they'll be asking us questions about whether or not we spray pesticides or whether we do this or do this or do that. And sorry.
No, that's okay. It's just us.
Yes. So when you walk walk through Costco, you see on everything the word organic. And it's a label that is out there. And I don't know how I want to say it. So we do a lot of spraying in the orchard. And
First of all, that's something to establish. You farm that orchard.
I farm
That
that orchard.
we're talking about. Okay, thank
I
you.
farm that orchard. I'm a manager of the farm.
Okay,
And we do a lot of spraying. It starts early in the spring and it goes until harvest.
okay. And when do you harvest?
That block of trees that's right next to the development there, harvest in August, in the middle of August,
Okay,
and they bloom in spring. So on the spraying part, you start spraying in March and you finish before you harvest.
okay. So you spray all summer?
We do.
Okay,
And one of the big things that in the area, the prevailing wind comes out of the northwest and comes out of the northwest into the southeast, so it's going right into the subdivision. When we do spray, we are mindful of everyone that's in the area. We try not to spray when there's any wind. So we'll start early in the morning when it's the calmest, and we'll stop when things start to pick up. We're mindful of the direction that's going, so that people don't get in the wind or anything, so we can keep it good. My dad and I were spraying, whether we're doing it during the day or at night. We were spraying another time. One time it was about 1 a.m. We started at 10 at night because the wind was blowing all day and we needed to get the trees covered. 1 a.m. came about. The trees were on a fence line and driving towards the houses. We got our tractor lights on the lights were on the tractor, and going towards the trees, we would shut the lights. Going towards the houses, we would shut the lights off of the tractor so that when we get closer to the houses, they wouldn't disturb them, the light shining into them. And when we would get closer to the coming down the row, as we get closer to the end of the row, we would shut the nozzles off on the sprayer and shut the fan clutch off and turn the RPMs down. And because have you seen sprayers out in the orchards? The air blast sprayers, they throw chemical up in the air and it drifts down and it will settle.
so do you spray from the ground? Are you standing on the ground and you spray up, or do you ladder and spray?
So I'm sitting in the tractor and behind
You're
the
in a tractor?
Yeah, I'm in a tractor with a cab, and behind
Okay.
the tractor I've got a trailer. It's a 500-gallon tank of water, and the chemicals mixed in it, and there's probably 20 nozzles on my sprayer, and it air blasts out. So it's a big old, like a peacock's tail.
Okay. Oh, I've seen those on the road. Okay.
So we're spraying, and so Mother Nature, when she takes her course and does her thing, it can be a little bit difficult when you get a lot of people around you. And right now with the trees that are there are some trees on the north on every direction, and with the subdivision it'll be literally every direction all the way around. So it gets difficult to help control when you're spraying. On another part of this place, I was spraying. You're getting down in the trees. I'm probably it's about 15 trees, 15 rows in, driving, which is about 108 feet from the edge of the trees. And when you're going through the trees, you really can't see very far. And I did catch a break. This time I caught a break through the trees, and I could see into one of the guys' field that's next to us. His house is on the other end of the field. His field is probably 100 yards long or so. And I'm spraying, doing my thing, looking for more bugs or what have you. And the gentleman's in the end of his field waving his hands at me, telling me to stop. And so I stopped, and I looked at him, and he just points for me to leave. I don't remember the exact conditions. I don't remember if there was a breeze going his way or anything. But so in conditions like that, we'll leave and then come back at a different time that to try to keep everyone happy.
Was he in one of the subdivisions, or was he in another farm?
Not in the subdivision. He's actually on the other side of those apples.
Oh, okay.
You see the word subject property?
Yeah.
He's here. He's above the word P.
Okay, is there,
North.
Yeah.
North, is there a fence to the west, is there a fence between that subdivision? Or south, is there a fence between that subdivision? So the south one wouldn't be where you are, but the one on the west part, your orchard is right up against that subdivision, correct?
Correct.
And there's no fence?
Can you point on it?
Oh, it's right there, yeah. You turn it on the bottom.
Which are you talking about?
I'm talking about,
West subdivision.
go left. There, that one right there, south of you.
This one.
Yeah, that one abuts your orchard.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a fence there?
So there's Fuji trees here and Golden Delicious apple trees here. There's a road that goes across that. There's not a fence.
A road.
And there's two houses. There's one about where the pointer's at, and then one on the edge.
Okay, so and then the other one up there, is the orchard by it at all, above the S on subject? Does the orchard come up to that one at all?
Above the word pear on Pear Lane is our packing shed,
Oh, okay.
and behind Laser's not quite.
No, it goes in and out.
Yeah. So we got a packing shed that's above the word pear.
Okay.
And that's right against that other development that happened a little while back.
Okay, do they have a fence?
No.
They're not fenced, okay. And so none of that subdivision is fenced?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And here, are you able to answer the question of how long the orchard's been operating there? When was that established?
So I was trying to think of the right year. The way I can keep track of it is we planted some pear trees when I got married 11 years ago. That's when we expanded the orchard. My dad will have a better date, approximately 11 years, maybe 12 years.
Okay.
Go off with how long I've been married.
So the property, the subject property, it's always been farmed?
Yes.
And what's been the crop on it? In
We
your 11 years, the orchard?
We planted Golden Delicious apples.
Not on your property.
Not on yours,
We
the
planted-
subject property?
The subject's the one being developed?
Yes.
Okay, terms, I'm sorry. There's been a lot of corn, and alfalfa a while back. There's corn on it right now.
Okay. Was it sprayed?
I'm sure they do.
I don't know farming too well, so
I'm
do
sure
they
do.
spray?
I don't know how, I don't know their program. I don't know if they're organic or if they're
Okay,
always raising it.
okay.
Probably spray.
Probably spray. Okay. And when the corn was there, there's not ever been a fence?
Oh.
No, just that road.
There's the buffer that he was talking about, the poplar trees, and there's a couple wild cherry trees that's way up in there, and some weeds that grew up in it, and the small barbed wire fence is there right now.
Okay, is it elevated at all, the road, or is it all the same level?
It's all pretty the same level.
Okay.
With ours.
And it's not sloped?
If you were to put a bucket of water, it would go south.
Okay. Okay.
Towards the river.
Any more? Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
No.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything more that's?
Besides chemical, there was one thing.
Okay.
Have you seen the big, noise is a big factor. I know I've been all over the place, but chemical and noise is kind of the biggest thing that I think about. Have you seen the orchard fans out in the fields?
Yeah.
Big wind machines and what they do. They're quite noisy. The property, the apple trees right there, that's the coldest area in our orchard. And so up on our hillside where I live versus those trees, I've seen it as much as 20 degrees difference in temperature. And in the springtime, when the trees are flowering and they get to that crucial stage where the fans need to be turned on to save your crop or not, we've got 3 orchard fans down through that stretch that's right up against the side of this. And they get to on a normal part of the orchard, you can start the fans around 3 or 4 in the morning and let them run until it warms up and shut them off. They're a big truck engine, a big V10 engine with straight pipes. The exhaust isn't on it. There's no exhaust on them, and they're hooked to a tower that runs the wind machine, so it sounds like a helicopter's landing on your house. I don't know if you've heard them. They're pretty impressive. That spot's cold enough, a couple of years back, that spot's cold enough that every night for almost a month, I started those fans at average between 11 and 11:30 at night. And you'd run them until it warms up. So it'd be anywhere from 9 to 10 in the morning. So 10 or 11 hours of running hard time. And they're moving fast and very loud. There was one of the nights that someone had come in and shut one of the fans off. I don't know where they're from, if they're in a subdivision, if they're a neighbor or whatever. But to go in and shut a fan off, they'd shut the propane valve off and flip the on switch into the off position, so it's not something that an animal or a bird can just come do. We lost some fruit that night. We didn't lose the whole crop, but you take a 2 million pound apple crop off of those trees, and if we happen to, which hopefully there never would be, someone that is just strong enough that wants to make it quiet, go out and do it themselves, it's a big crop that we'd lose in just a matter of a couple of hours.
So, okay, so, but what I want to make sure that I'm on the same wavelength.
Yes.
Those homes were there 11 years ago. They were already established when you put the orchard in.
When we, yeah, the homes that are all around it.
The homes that are
There's
around.
a couple that's gone in.
Oh, so there are some new ones. Okay.
A couple of them.
Okay, but the majority of the homes that are in those that subdivision that
Yeah.
borders up against it was there.
And we've really
Okay.
had there's good people in the area.
Well, it sounds like you haven't had the one guy that was pointing the way. He might have been wanting you to spray his trees too. Did you ever think of that?
It'd be illegal, but maybe.
So, no, it sounds like for 11 years, if, just that one guy, and this is just the time you're talking about, it's been a neighborly situation,
Yeah.
and there's no fence, there's nothing, there's a road. So thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Barbara Parsley. Name and address, please.
Barbara Parsley, 22535 Bauman Drive, Wilder, Idaho.
Oh.
I work at the orchard as an entomologist. Okay? So, I understand that some think there's no new information coming in. There is new information. I personally know the people in these small developments. I go out in this orchard all the time, and I know these people.
You are an entomologist, is that what you said?
I'm working as an entomologist.
Okay.
I'm actually a geologist, which I could address the water thing with this also. So the older section of the development has been there for generations. They have raised their children there. However, in 2019, somebody received permission to build 6 new houses on John Lane, which goes right up to that section that they're talking of developing. Is that, you understand what I'm saying?
Talking about the north.
Is directly to the west
Oh, okay.
is John Lane, and somebody received permission to build 6 new houses there. Since that time, multiple people in the older development have lost water or had their water levels decreased precipitously. One had well parts burn out because their well pump continued to run in a now dry well. The clay sediments that are under that area is a lake bed. The clay sediments hold water, but they don't give off water. And I can do more with that with geology. We probably just don't need it. They have water in there, and it doesn't give it off if it's clay. It will if it's sand, but it doesn't replenish well when it's clay. So these people are running dry. We're talking small housing development to the west there. We're talking they're losing waters for showers, washing laundry, flushing a toilet. I emphasize that the water is in the ground, but it is inaccessible because of the clay. So when one neighbor now washes their laundry, the other may need to hold off a bath for their children because the water replenishment is so poor. And that's just with the 6 additional houses that were put in within the last year on John. That's how bad the water situation has become since approval of those houses. These people are suffering individually and personally. The current people in the abutting neighborhood who I personally know are experiencing actual harm and loss to their fundamental right to water, which is necessary for life. The people in the development, my friends, are poor. This is not a wealthy development. They don't have the money to add new wells or to repair burned out pumps when the water runs dry. For the sake of this developer, you're going to ask if they have to set a neighborhood schedule of who can take a shower when and who can flush their children when and who can bathe their children, bathe when. they don't have the water. They're losing the water from 6 houses. I can't imagine what it would be like when they suddenly put in this large development. Additionally, according to the Department of Water Resources, with whom I spoke this morning, the septic system that will be put in will eventually lead to degradation of this water. If you add additional housing development and a strip mall, the irreparable harm that will be brought to these long-term residents will be extensive. The developer will build and sell and move on without any thought to the fact that he has just made many families destitute. However, if the development is put in, the developer should be, I think, this is my own thing, I've not run this by anybody, responsible to supply adequate water to the homes in the area. I don't mean an impact fee. I mean supply the water because these people can't afford to add to it. Let me just add a couple things to Dan's thing. The farm has been there for years, by which maybe we've only had it since, I don't know, he told you, but it's been there for years, like 50s and 40s. So this is not a new thing. The farm area that is in question where they want the development, that farmer has always worked organic. So the spray issue is not quite the same issue. The ones that you mentioned, you know, do we have a fence between some of the other areas and the other houses? We don't have a fence there, but there is setback. There's one that has a whole field for cows in it. There's roads that are quite set back. So the issue of distance for spray is not as crucial as it is with these, that the houses are right up to this road.
Okay, I have a question for you. The houses where the wells are not
Going dry?
Yes. If they were deeper, there would still be water, though. There's still water down there.
There is water down there, but according to the Department of Water Resources, it is very difficult to get out. So visualize a magnet, okay? You have 2 magnets, and they cling together really quickly. And whatever is in the middle, you got a piece of paper in the middle of that magnet, it would be hard to pull out that piece of paper from 2 strong magnets. Well, what you've got with clay substrates is that you have magnetic or ionic particles. So it traps the water in them, but it is very difficult to get out and very difficult to replenish. And the Idaho Department of Water Resources said this is not a good idea because they're running into problems. The water may be physically there, but it's not accessible.
So that's right now. And
right now.
So it's not because of what we're talking about.
Right, they've already damaged, whoever it is that put in the 6 houses.
The 6 houses.
Has already damaged the water replenishment for that area. If you have this subdivision that adds, I don't know, 19 more houses, 20 more houses and a strip mall, it will totally deplete this. And you're going to have piles of families that do not have water. People that have been there for generations that now will be without water.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Barbara, thank you for your testimony. Can you put your entomology hat on and address the issues on spraying? There was a moth that was identified in there, and just maybe what that looks like in, you know, insect control on the orchard, and how many acres we're talking about. And, you know, there was some statement that was made that we would be qualified to know how to mitigate for that, and I don't see that as our job. Talk about that. That is your field of expertise.
Okay, so I go out and I check insects through the orchard, and I monitor which ones we have concerns over and which ones we don't. Not all insects are bad. And when we find enough pressure of negative insects, bad insects, then we spray. If you have people putting in trees too on that section, and maybe they might think an apple tree is nice or a pear tree, and they don't know how to take care of it correctly, and they don't take care of it correctly, we're going to have an increase in insect population. We have to spray on a regular basis in order to maintain the insect low count, and that will affect these people. I mean, I stay away from it when they're spraying.
Thank you. Okay, are you?
Yeah, I just question, I think, and maybe it's TJ or Greg, I think,
No,
I don't know if we have, we can restrict the type of trees that go in there to have no fruit trees allowed, I think we.
through the development agreement?
Yeah.
But you still have the spray that's drifting over because we still have to protect from those insects.
Right, I'm just saying, as far as crop pollination,
Yeah.
if we stick no fruit trees in there, you wouldn't have that issue.
That would not be an issue. I would want to try to manage as a county commissioner for code enforcement, because people buy what they want to buy. Unless you're going to have a code enforcement officer, we currently have one, about 200 cases. That is not a viable solution in my opinion.
That's true. And we had one woman come out, we do have, if you see that orchard right there, there's a house in the middle, kind of, let me go, there we go. How do you do this thing?
Push the end.
Push the end.
Don't point at anybody's head.
Yeah, no kidding.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
Sometimes it doesn't work. So this house, you know, we've even had to work with that because they will, previously, the man was not well mentally, and he would go out and he would stand also to prevent spraying. You know, you don't know what you're going to deal with. You know, you're dealing with somebody that is not altogether there. And
A lot of scenarios that we can't.
a lot of scenarios. We also have kids wandering through those orchards, which is not appropriate because those trees are now sprayed with toxins. We have dogs that would increase going through there and that are sprayed with toxins. We have had one woman who said her dog ran through the orchard one day after spraying. There's nothing we can do about that. Her dog lost his hair. So, you know, you're going to increase this problem if you approve this. There's so many issues, but the biggest one for me is the fact that these people will lose water.
Thank you.
They lose their right to live there.
Okay, Stephen Bear.
Stephen Bear, I've lived on the slope there, 14565 Perfection Lane. I've lived there for 40 years, and I've really managed this orchard for the 40 years. This particular part of it, I haven't. This is new. But I would like to present, if I could, I've got 2 more petitions that have been signed that I brought with me besides what you've already got. There's about 50 more signatures.
Jen, what?
73.
73, okay.
Copies or?
Well, we can just distribute them here if you can bring them up here.
Okay, most of these are pretty much local. Not very many of them are out of the area. We just didn't travel that far to get them. We've talked about bugs a lot, and you know, I know orchards that have gone out because of the neighbors' pressure from the trees. This happened to be in Warren. I know it's large down, but I was advising for that orchard. They ended up taking out the orchard, and I know how well the bugs are controlled through the county. The county has. Sometimes we're nice to the neighbors. We'll usually tell them that we'll give you a box of fruit if you won't plant a tree, and we'll give you apples every year. And we've made an agreement where the trees are next to us, if we can spray those trees for them without going in their yard or something like that, then we'll do that.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Bear? It's regarding the water that Barbara, that was very interesting to me. You've been for 40 years in this area, correct?
Yeah.
Those 6 houses, that subdivision, and their wells are going dry. How do you water that orchard? Is that
all surface water?
all
We have a
surface?
well that's 800 feet deep.
800-foot deep
But
well?
that's all irrigated with surface water, which should out of Lake Lowell.
Okay. So but it's 800 feet deep.
I think in the 10 years we've been there, in that particular part of the orchard, we've used the well 1 year, and not that much.
Okay.
We try not to. I don't like to use wells, especially to irrigate, because irrigation wells take it from all the levels.
Yeah.
But being there for this 40 years, when I was first there, that was artesian. All of that water over there by those houses, it was artesian. It is going down.
Okay.
Sue Allen was on the south side of the store, and she was on it. Had artesian.
Okay, okay.
And we have a lot of artesian water still, but not over there. It's on the other side of the canal, and it's up the hill.
Oh, okay.
And then it goes down to the lake, but it's getting dry.
So besides that, those two lots that are right there at the north of the property, how much property does the church own around there?
There's a total of about, down there, probably about 300 acres.
Oh, wow, okay. Is it all in
All
fruit trees?
orchard.
All orchard?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And we've just planted a bunch of trees, and see what we produce with that is given to the poor throughout the nation. Over 70 semis have gone through Feeding America. And
Do they go, are they international? Do you send that,
Yeah, we do.
you do send it international?
Not so much bottled, or not so much fresh, but we'll send a lot fresh.
Okay.
And there's a lot of the can.
Oh, okay.
And
So there's a facility there that cans
we've got a
and
cannery.
cannery and
in Garden
everything?
City.
Okay, wow.
And we'll do a pretty good share, about 2 million pounds of pears, 2 million pounds of peaches, and applesauce is different, so.
Interesting.
So I know we're not on the tax roll because it's a charitable organization, but it's worthwhile charity, especially this year. We've been sending out 15 semi-loads of fruit every week. Not fruit, food, through our other farms too. But I wanted to address some of these other things like foot traffic. For example, I don't know, you might build a fence, but there's canal roads that goes through these, and everybody thinks canal roads aren't private, or yeah, they aren't private. And with some of the new rules that we've been given, through the GAP, the Good Agricultural Practices, and through FDA, we'll have 2 inspections on our food safety applications and on our fruit. And we send in tests to labs to have all of our fruit tested every year before it's consumed. And we spend $4,000 on a chemical test, or on this certification for food safety. And with all of this in mind, we record anybody that enters the orchard that we can. But this foot traffic that carries with them dogs and they run around, and it's kind of a big problem. When we started, they even wanted us to control the birds, and I don't know how they'd ever think of doing that. So we wrote a tolerance, and that's the best we can do. So we've got a lot of rules and paperwork, and the job has changed in 40 years to where I'm glad I'm almost done, but I feel bad for my son.
Do you, because it's a charitable orchard and everything, do people from your church or other people take it upon themselves to go out there and help themselves to the fruit as well?
No, we've had some that have done it, but they're not supposed to.
Oh, they're not? Okay, okay.
They really aren't supposed to. We do have volunteers we had 700 people in our orchard, but they've all signed a paper stating that they've been trained, that they're kind of a release of a liability, and that they're there to donate time from the church. We do allow them to glean a tree when they're done.
Oh, okay.
And they'll take home from that.
This is very interesting. Thank you for taking the time today to be here. It's right here and very interesting.
And then, so we're asked dog poops in the orchard or deer or something, we record it, we keep track of that, but this foot traffic kind of adds trouble. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about with all of this development, 26 houses, and who knows what's next after that. Motorcycles that have run through there, kids, I've seen 4 kids on a motorcycle, and they're going down that canal road, and they don't stay on the canal road, but by the time we get there, they're out of there. And that's kind of hard to maintain, so it's the population area too. So that's difficult. Out of all of the fruit grown in Idaho, the 3 best fruit growing areas is Emmett, Fruitland, and us. It used to go clear to Boise. We're the last out of the 3 areas are. And out of the 3, we're the best because we have an advantage over the river that stores heat from the day and the Lake Lowell that stores heat from the day and where it's like solar energy. And so we have a little bit better benefit of frost-free areas. Up on top of the hill, we don't run fans. We don't have to. But on these low spots, there's a 10-degree difference where these fans are that we run a lot, and up at my house on top of the hill. And so, and those fans we can raise the temperature 10 degrees with those fans. So it's kind of a big deal for us to be able to make this noise. And we've had people cut propane lines. We've had people cut the engines off. We've even had people go up a tower and steal the radiator off the tower and sell it for $60 so we can replace it for $800. And so we've had copper cut out of our cooling system and our coolers. Who knows how much they made for that, but it cost us $50,000 to fix it. So it's the population, and it worries me that we have all of this pressure coming in on us. And I know Tom Dorsey is the one that sold his property, and he was always against developing. I would always go to his house. I was kind of one of these church attendants. Anyway, I know he was against it. When he left, it was just dire circumstance. He had a concern with one of these in a business dealership dealing there. And so that kind of magnified things, and he left. He just sold it. And so it kind of left all of this open, and that's why we're talking about this today, because of that. And I hate to see all of that ground that he sold start changing. And any development that happens here, it's a concern to me.
Well, I want to ask you a question about that, because from what I've heard and what I'm understanding, and you tell me if I'm wrong, okay? This property that we've discussed today would be the only property out there that would be totally fenced off from, because they're going to have a fence. We've required a fence all the way around and everything. So it would be the only property around your orchard that would be fenced.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
There is 300 yards, except for one house. There's at least 300 yards on the north side to most of the houses. We're not even close to the houses.
Okay.
On the top that's in the center of our apples, that's the concern. And it's just one house we have to be really careful with.
And it's an existing house. Okay.
And it's been there a long time.
Okay.
I don't know how long Robinson's owned it before us, but it's been there long. There's been apples there before us.
Is that the one with the red roofs?
Red roofs.
Just north of your orchard, there's 3 red roofs on houses, right? Looks like that's they do have homes, but that's not. I think that. Oh, wait a minute. Right in the middle, right at the end of that first section of your middle. It's right in the middle.
By the T on Truist.
Yeah.
Just a minute, I gotta figure out what's over there. That's up on top of the hill, I think.
Healthy.
That's okay. That's okay. It doesn't matter. That's
I don't think.
spurious question. It doesn't really matter one way or another.
Yeah, there's a tall hill. There's a doctor.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
I say out of all the people that we talked to in these surveys or petitions, we didn't talk to anybody that wanted a change on this. I don't know. We had one person that says, well, if it does, it'll increase the value of our home. That was about the only thing we got. But nobody really wanted this to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith?
I didn't take a shit.
Oh, we did.
Just like 2.
Okay, 4 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
You can go ahead. We're going to take a 4-minute break.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. There is, that's, I have, kind of the bank, required to have a second.
Thank you.
We still have, these are all done. We still have Heath, and then I've got to go back to
This guy?
this one and this one.
Oh, yeah.
These two to make sure,
Yeah.
because I think they both were sworn in.
Do you want this?
Oh,
Trying to read.
we can put it at, thank you. We can have this, Jennifer, we got, Barbara gave us her thing to put on the record, so that would be Exhibit 74.
Commissioner White, yes. Sorry, I didn't hear all of what you said, but an additional exhibit would be 74.
Okay, very good, thank you. Barbara gave us her.
Oh, that's what she read from?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much. Okay. We're back on the record, and we have Heath Clark. Name and address, please.
Commissioners, Heath Clark, 251 Front Street in Boise, and representing the LDS Church.
Okay.
I wanted to start briefly with the procedural question that was brought up at the beginning of the hearing, and I wanted to clarify a couple of items there. So when it comes to the June proceedings, my position is not that the public record was closed in June. That the argument is not based on anything that happened in June. I agree with everyone here that the record was very clearly left open for purposes of this hearing. The question is what happened back in January? And was there a final decision at that point to approve this subject to whatever steps had to occur after that? And my reading of county code is that there needs to be a final decision within 30 days, or a written decision within 30 days. Mr. Wesley's opinion is a little different than mine, but I think in the alternative, if you look at it either way, if there hasn't been a final decision that binds this commission at this point, then you've acted appropriately in considering additional information. And that additional information should be incorporated into whatever decision ultimately comes out of this. My position is that your hands are not tied by what happened in January. That's the extent of the argument there. Another point that I wanted to address is, and I'm a bit disappointed in the characterization of my conversation with Mr. Bullock. Mr. Bullock reached out after TJ and I talked after the last hearing. I indicated to Mr. Bullock that I needed to find out who was going to be authorized to chat with him. It's a large organization. There's a bureaucracy. You need to know who has the ability to speak. I was instructed to speak with him along with Salt Lake Council. We set up the time to meet, to chat on the phone. Salt Lake Council had a last-minute issue come up, weren't able to join us. I didn't know that they weren't going to be able to, but we had a good conversation. Mr. Bullock and I talked about the Royals and Cardinals for a little bit because I went to law school in St. Louis and he spent some time in Kansas City. We talked about the conditions of approval that we had suggested in our prior conversations and whether those would be something that the applicant was for or against. I asked whether there would be additional conditions of approval that the applicant might be putting forward. We discussed some of the concerns that they had about the privacy fence, the concrete one that we discussed. The fact that we didn't come to an agreement doesn't mean that it was not a meaningful conversation. We had a conversation. Ultimately, for example, a privacy fence, it was in the original documents. And we discussed the fact that that's not a new offering, and a privacy fence is not going to address issues with pesticide drift. It's not going to affect issues with noise. It won't address issues with just having more people nearby. So, we appreciated the opportunity to be able to have that conversation, but the fact that it didn't lead to a complete agreement, hugging and kumbaya doesn't mean that it wasn't meaningful. You've heard the point, we're concerned about the impact that this will have. This is not a concern that's coming out of quote-unquote Temple Square. You've heard from the locals here, you've seen petitions from people who live nearby. This is a major concern, and that is why we're here and we're pushing so hard. So when we were here this morning, or when I was here this morning for the prior hearing, we were talking a lot about the fact that I handle a lot of these applications, and oftentimes I'm on the side of the developer, right? If you guys know that, I'm here before you that way. I am an advocate for private property rights. That's important to me, and I appreciate what TJ said about that. But what allows us to protect private property rights is a set of rules that are predictable, both in terms of their interpretation and their enforcement. And what does that mean? In the zoning context, that means planning. That means good planning that is consistently upheld, and it's what tells private property owners what they can expect to do with their property and what their neighbors can expect to do with theirs. So how does that apply here? The planning tells us that there are certain expectations for what will happen in this area. This isn't like a lot of circumstances where there's some interpretation about what the future planning is anticipated in this area. It's we're not up against an area of impact boundary. We don't have residential anywhere nearby. This area is comp planned agricultural, and it is well outside any area of city impact. I talked with you at the last hearing about how it does not meet the comp plan standards that are identified in your code. It's not in general conformance with the comp plan. It's not more appropriate than an agricultural use given the existing uses. It's not compatible with the orchard use in particular. Or is it an area where growth is expected? It also doesn't meet the rezone standards. It's not in accordance with the comp plan. It's not more appropriate than the existing land uses, which include these hundreds of acres of orchard. As we discussed this morning, residential development should occur in the cities. It should occur in areas of city impact where there's a plan to provide services and ultimately annex these properties in. So let me go back to affordability as I finish up. No one is against the idea of affordable housing. I practice all over the Treasure Valley, and we know that there is a huge pressure on property values and it's going up drastically. You know, but these are large lots. We're talking acreages here. You know, Mr. Bullock didn't give you a number. He said to me on the phone that he thought that folks could be all in on these properties for $250K. You know, with construction costs such as they are, I think that's pretty tough unless you're just going to give away the lot. You have to have, remember, they're going to have to install septic and wells, so $15,000 to $20,000 just out the gate for that. And then construction costs are astronomical. So the suggestion that it would be $250K is tough for me. There's also nothing proposed in the CP&R that would restrict these to agricultural uses. And I don't know, or even to affordable housing. And I don't know how you would avoid speculation in these lots. But ultimately, the issue here is not affordable housing. I can't stress that enough. The issue is not affordable housing. The question is whether the county is going to uphold its planning. And the planning shows that this area is intended to remain agricultural. The uses on the ground are not, I mean, this use on the ground that's proposed is not in accord with the comp plan. And these neighbors, the 111 lots nearby, were not approved under zoning as it exists in the county. They all predate your zoning code and the local land use planning act. They were grandfathered in. But to be clear, the orchard is 90, I think it's 90 years old. The church has only been operating it for 10 or 15 years. And there have been, as Steve and Dan explained to you, there have been issues in trying to coexist. And adding additional units right here, plus, and I can't emphasize this enough, 6 acres of commercial is just asking for additional conflict. And it's asking to make this orchard be in jeopardy as it moves forward. You know, the existing homes, I would just put it this way, they are not an excuse to toss out all of your plans. If you want to provide affordable housing in the area, then it needs to be planned for. It hasn't been, this isn't the place to do it. You're hearing a lot of testimony that's suggesting that the rules should be thrown out because there's a good goal in the end, but that's just not how it works. And so with that, I would leave you with those comments, and I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions that you might have.
Thank you, Karen. And I am looking at the information that you provided, and the last time we had a real estate developer person in there, the building costs were estimated at $210 a square foot. I think they're higher now. And if you back into the numbers, that puts 1,200 square foot home in $250,000. That's just information for the rest. So I appreciate you providing that. That would mean that on a 1 acre lot, you have a very small house with a lot of property, and that goes back again, you have to have weed mitigation and things that would, I agree with you, I'm going to make that statement. This is not about affordable housing. This is about the comprehensive plan. This is about the appropriateness of rezoning an area that has been designated agriculture on the county's comprehensive plan. I appreciate that statement.
I have a question too, and I don't want you to think I'm being snarky or anything, okay? But I just I'm always very, I don't like the word impressed because I'm just always very taken by the charitable contributions that the church does, the Mormon church does. If this were charitable housing, and the orchard was there with that charitable contribution too. And so if it worked out where this housing was in a position, it was charitable housing. So in other words, it was, it wasn't $210 a square foot, or it was affordable so that the workers and all of that, anybody could have the home, okay? And if they weren't farm worker, but they were they were homeless and they needed affordable housing. If this was charitable, would the church have a different, I mean, it's making you speak and be their conscience, and that's not what I'm wanting you to do. I'm just thinking about it in my mind. I'm just thinking it is, because it's out of, I just wonder if there would be, because from what I know and the people I know and all of that sort of thing, I think it would be different, Keith. But because, no, I'm sorry, but because it's, see, I have a problem. I'm struggling with 250,000 being affordable housing. I'm struggling with that. And some of the people that need this housing at that price, they won't even be able to go and look at it, okay? So I'm not doing this to put you in an awkward position or stick my tongue out at you or anything, but I think it would be different if there was the Mormon church there, Orchard, and this, it's amazing. There's over 300 acres there, and the crops and the 15 semis a week, or is that what you said? Yes, and that sort of thing. And so if this was part of that, and volunteers, and they worked and stuff, and worked with all of that sort of a thing, it would be different, don't you think?
Madam Chair, a couple of points.
Okay.
First is, obviously, that's a hypothetical.
That's a hypothetical, exactly.
Difficult.
I admit that.
The point I would make is this, that if we're going to address affordable housing, this isn't how you do it. You don't do affordable housing on acreage lots out in the middle of, an area far removed from urban services. You're not going to get to an affordable price point unless you have density and you have the ability to connect to city sewer and city water and all of that. So that's my second point. Third point would be that, I think that the same issues would still be there. There's this charitable purpose here, and that's great.
Yeah.
But really what we're talking about is that the county has always upheld agriculture. And the county has made this area an agricultural area. And every time we stick a residential subdivision up next to an agricultural use, we're imperiling that agricultural use. And that's really what it all comes down to. The motivations aside, I will just talk about, I'm sure everybody has the right motivations here on both sides.
Yeah.
But really what this comes down to in the private property rights question is a question of planning and upholding the planning. And the planning should put affordable housing where it can actually be affordable. That's where I would leave that.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you very much. Any further questions for him?
Madam Chair, I appreciate your sentiments and your comments. There is affordable housing located off of, I believe, the farming south of Highway 19, closer to that Wilder area, and that is exactly what you're saying. It's a different dynamic. It's a different place. It's not. If you look at apples to apples on that, the same cultural aspects that exist there do not exist. They don't coexist. And we're not taking something out of to put it into a non-conforming purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the only other people I have are Mr. Hume and Mr. Penscover.
New person who joined, Stacy Red.
And Stacy Red. Have I missed anybody that wishes to speak? Did I miss anybody that wishes to speak? Okay. Okay. This is your last chance.
There was Loyal Hume.
Yeah. Mr. Hume, I have his name down.
I think he must have dropped.
And let's see, and
Hello?
I have Jim. Bill?
Hello?
Hello?
This is Mr. Hume.
Did
Can
you
you hear
want
me?
to speak? Yes, we can. Did you want to speak?
Yes, if I could, but I would like to be the last speaker if that's possible. If not, I'll speak now.
Well, you're not going to be the last speaker because the applicant gets to go last.
Okay, I'm happy to speak now.
Okay,
thank you for your
good.
time. Thank you so much for your time today. I've appreciated the comments that were being made, especially by Mr. Clark. I think he summarized it well. I think there was some confusion early on in the hearing, and I'm glad that most of it got clarified now, that this is really about inconsistent uses. There's been significant effort on our part to find conditions that maybe could work, but as we get into it, you can kind of see now that with the water problems, with the noise problems, with the dust problems, with the potential pesticide issues, and with all those different things, there's just no way to have these two uses be compatible. And that's why you have one of the strongest plans in the country in terms of protection for agriculture. And when you go to undermine it by putting residential uses in an agricultural zone, you serve to undo and unhinge almost 100 years of planning that's gone on in that Caldwell area. So I hope that as we make this decision today, everyone will be very, very careful about undoing all of that planning. And I hope that we'll also look at all the written record to see that there's not the conditions met that are required to undo that planning. Whether you have the desire to do it is one thing, but the conditions haven't been met. So even if you wanted to from a personal basis, or you were supportive of, low-income housing, which we can't see any way this will be low-income housing, but even if you were, we don't think it's met the criteria that's necessary in any way, shape, or form. And finally, we just hope that everyone will pause for just a minute and consider all of those factors in totality and understand that the only way we get good planning is to use those plans that are in place and to absolutely focus on the fact that there are inconsistent uses here. Residential up against an orchard that's been there over 90 years is incompatible in any way. And that's why while we met with them and had sincere desires to do it, there was so much concern. In conclusion, I would plead with the commissioners to look at the overwhelming opposition to this. As Steve Baird mentioned early on, we've only found one person in the hundreds that have been talked to, and the many, many on the petitions and letters that have come in that was even remotely interested in seeing this happen other than the applicant. So you've got overwhelming opposition in your county, overwhelming opposition in terms of your planning, and still we're here looking at potentially undoing years and years of precedent. Would plead with this commission to think of that evidence carefully and to deny this application immediately today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Penscover, Jeff, are you there? Okay. So I see I have nobody else that has spoken up and nobody else. So I'm going to go now to the applicant, back to Greg Bullock, and we're going to, this will be the last one. So after the applicant speaks, we will close public testimony. Okay.
Commissioners, thank you for all of your time these last 18 months in this process. I feel like I've been scolded by a first grade teacher with that last call in from the attorney in Salt Lake City. I hope you don't let that influence what somebody in Salt Lake City determines to be affordable housing in Canyon County. It just amazes me how somebody outside the region, even in the city of Boise, and Mr. Clark can tell us what's affordable and not affordable over here. They haven't been a part of this from day one. They've come on at the last scene and throw out all these claims when you have in your exhibits from one of the first hearings that we had of housing that is affordable that will go into this in the way of manufactured homes. It'll keep that at 250 or less. And so that's already in the exhibit. That's already a part of what you have in your packet. And so if you come on late and make some claims like that, it's a little embarrassing because it can be done, and that is the plan. And the bottom line is affordable housing. Now, Commissioner Van Beek said we have the burden of proof. Well, we've done that. We have proven that there are 111 lots contiguous to this project, and we have proven that another 23 is not going to impact that orchard any more than the 111 have which has been there since 1948, 1949. In fact, if you approve this, we're going to have more of a controlled environment than any of the 111 existing lots, because we will have the perimeter fencing, we will have the development agreement that you've been pretty heavy on to make sure that these things are taken care of, and which we've agreed to. Months ago, we agreed to the development agreement with Development Services and your staff and yourself, ready for that final approval on this, and then it just keeps coming and keeps coming. And now today, we've witnessed a massive nonprofit organization with a communication department that sends out emails to all their members in order to sign petitions and come in an objection through a mass media presentation in their emails, where we're getting letters from bishops in Middleton, members in the church in Kuna and in Nampa over on Happy Valley Road, in Caldwell, from all over the valley. Why? Because they have the ability to do mass communications with their memberships. Do they do a lot of good work and they're charitable? Yes. But tell me why you can own billions of dollars worth of cattle companies and manufacturing properties and farms throughout this country with that purpose in mind, and then stand up and oppose people who would like to own their own home for $250,000 or less. You asked an amazingly accurate question. If we hypothetically were to say, how about this becomes a charitable community where people can afford their own home and not rent it twice this amount? What if we did that? Would the church be in favor of that? Great question. I don't think it was really answered, because how can you be in favor of feeding the poor and using billions of dollars to do that, which everybody's happy about and grateful for, and then on the other hand say, but we're not really excited about affordable housing being next to our properties? That doesn't bode well with me. And that's my point. It is affordable housing. Your decision today is, are we going to participate or not? And is there a better position in the county, location in the county, than this location? And I've searched it. I don't know where it is, if it exists, simply because of compatibility and what's there. And doing our best through the development agreement and CC&Rs to control. Obviously, they have the right to Farm Act that's in full compliance with that, and nobody can shut them down, okay? And that's the threat we hear. You know, there's a threat that our entire orchard is going to be shut down. They have been compatible since 1948, okay? It's not going to shut them down. 23 more home sites, but it is going to provide 23 families with an opportunity to get started in life and affordable housing. And that is what this is about. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a clarification and question. The term affordable housing has different assumptions associated with it. Affordable housing is the Farmway project, where you get a little house and a piece of ground. When you're talking about affordable housing, you're talking about owning an acre.
Correct.
With a small house on it.
Correct.
Can you, manufactured home, we've seen that presentation, that's part of the record. Can you just expand on that a little bit, just in terms of what, when you're talking about buying an acre of ground with a small home on it, how does that appeal to this sector?
Well, first of all, they can't afford to buy anything. Second of all, there's a tremendous demand to live outside the city limits. I would venture to say that the three of you and myself have all lived outside the city limits at some time. I don't know that. I know Commissioner Van Beek has. I know that I have. It's a privilege. And with the pricing the way it is now, it's privileged only for the wealthy. This is an opportunity for those who can get what's called a rural residential loan.
That's where I wanted to get to. Yeah.
There's a loan out there for areas like this that are in agricultural areas where they can get a rural residential loan for reduced interest rates and 100% financing that enables them to come in and buy a $250,000 property and have payments for under $1,000 a month. That is affordable for ag employees and for a lot of people. They're paying more than that in rent right now. But what this does is it gives them an opportunity for ownership, a start in life. We're a young couple. Where's a brand new married couple now going to buy a house? They're not. They're forced to rent. Why are all the apartments going in around Nampa and Caldwell? Why do you see such mass, high-density, multifamily developments going in? Because all you can do is rent because you can't afford to buy. And that's a sad story. So we have a housing crunch. We have an opportunity to address that for 23 families, okay? And the question is, do we feel an obligation to do that? And is this appropriate site? And I think we've proven that our burden of proof does satisfy that. Simply because of what's there and where it's located, and it provides what we're looking for. So the answer is yes, it can happen.
And yet, the only other question I had for Mr. Bullock at this point here, I remember we did talk about the letter from Mr. Hume and the conditions that they recommended, and part of that was the 100-foot setback, and I seem to recall that was okay.
No.
It's not okay?
It was never okay.
Okay.
I just didn't want to buy it.
I just wanted to clarify that because I had some notes on here. I wasn't sure about that. Okay, thank you.
The other thing was a 100-foot concrete fence. I don't get 100 foot, a 6-foot concrete fence as that privacy, and that's not what we're doing. We're putting a privacy fence. It's the same thing that goes next to the commercial and to that single family up there in the corner, and just basically follow the red line along the orchard and along the other housings for the boundary fence.
Right.
Okay.
And would a fence of that nature keep dogs or anything like that out of that?
Yeah, it's an enclosed fence. Yeah, it's a privacy fence. It'll certainly help. I'm not going to say a dog can dig under it. Mine have. But it'll certainly help.
Okay, I have no. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Madam Chair, I move to close public testimony.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded to close public testimony. All in favor? Aye.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it probably is no secret. The board is charged simply with discovering whether or not the information provided in the staff report is able to overcome a decision that's been provided by Planning and Zoning. Planning and Zoning denied this application, and they've taken the criteria that we have, and they have, and I'm going to go through this, is the requested type of growth generally in conformance? The answer is no. We have testimony that supports that. And then there are 7 supporting pieces of documentation right out of the comprehensive plan that support A. And B is the surrounding land proposal more appropriate than the current comprehensive plan designation? The answer is no. Is it compatible? The answer is no. Development trends in the area indicate the current designation and circumstances have changed. The answer is no. The answer is no to these questions. And in the absence of information that would overcome the recommendation and the argument that's been made that Canyon County protects and upholds their comprehensive plan, we are not talking about affordable housing. And if we feel generous and charitable, then perhaps the question of donating the land to provide a buffer is one that should be considered by the developer. And that answer was, if you want it, you have to buy it. And that is also true. I'm speaking as a person that lives in the county. I live simply, and I've lived below my means. And you cannot give everything to everyone that wants to simply own a piece of what they consider they're entitled to without working for it. It takes a lifetime. And that's the argument that I'm making. This plan is not about affordable housing. It is about protecting an agricultural area. And there are areas more appropriately zoned and designated. That's not my job to find that. That belongs to the landowner who, it's my understanding, has lots of ground. This area should continue to be protected by the Board of County Commissioners. That's what our job, that's what we're charged with. We do not have anything that will overcome the decision by planning and zoning to deny this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Bamby. Mr. Dale, do you have anything?
Well, I do have some comments. I'm really torn on this one. I hear both sides of this very clearly. And I'm looking at maybe a different document than what Mr. Van Beek just referred to. This is findings of fact, conclusions of law. And I see as a requested type of growth generally in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Conclusion, proposed use is in general conformance with the 2020 Canyon County future land use map. The finding, the proposed type of growth is in general conformance with the following goals and policies. Encourage future population to locate in areas that are conducive to residential and do not pose incompatible land use. Subject property is adjacent on the west and south to platted subdivisions with similar lot sizes as those being proposed. And again, achieve a land use balance which recognizes existing agricultural uses and non-agricultural development may occur in the same area. This property is located adjacent to both agriculture and residential uses. Property is adjacent on west and south to platted subdivisions. Existing properties have existing residential uses have coexisted with agricultural uses for some time.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what document is being referred to.
What's the date on it, Commissioner? Does it have the date?
So
I don't see a date on it.
It's the findings and facts, Jen.
Okay, I would refer you to Exhibit 1 in your packet. Those are the proposed findings that you should be working from. Those mirror staff's recommendation. I'm not sure where the other document came from, other than maybe that was a draft after the last hearing back in January. Those were never adopted or anything by the board. So Exhibit 1 is what 1 and 1A would be what you're referring to.
Okay. Well, we never adopted anything, so I'm just looking at findings of fact, conclusions of law. They came from somewhere that I didn't write. So,
yes.
Anyway.
So I think the point of clarification from our staff is that we are working from the staff report with the hearing date that's December 11th, 2019. Jen, you can help me with it, something different, but it's one of 9 pages, and the information that you've laid out in there is well written. That recommendation, staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners deny the comprehensive plan map amendment. That's the same document that you're working from, Jen?
Correct. So in the staff report that was originally dated December 11th, because this has been an ongoing hearing that's the record's just been added to. Exhibit 1 and 1A in that report contain staff recommendations as well as the proposed findings that staff is recommending for the board to consider during their deliberation.
This document that I was referring to looks like it was created back in June 10th. It was available for the June 10th hearing. That's what I'm looking at.
Commissioner Dale. Those may have been prepared based on the decision that was noted on the record back in January, but we never got to that point of adopting that written decision because we had to continue on with the hearing and development agreement. So that's where we're at today, is working from the staff report and staff recommendation. If you want to change any of those proposed findings, we need to do that on the record and then continue any sort of written decision to allow time for staff to prepare those written documents for you.
Well, I don't know, I guess I'm confused because I didn't write this up.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
It's okay. That is, we never,
adopted either one. None of them have been adopted.
but we're working
Right.
from the
Right.
original staff report
Right.
of December 11th. Yeah.
December 11th
Yeah.
and June
So it's
10th.
not relevant.
Well, I think it's relevant. I think it is relevant because it was.
What would be relevant if you want to refer to that is the minutes from like our last
Yeah, okay.
hearing or something like that, but,
I'm just looking at the documents I have in front of me, so,
okay.
it is relevant, yeah.
Madam Chair, we also have testimony today from a geologist and entomologist that I think needs to bear weight on record that there's going to be issues in an 800-foot well. That's a pretty significant depth for surface to groundwater. Right now, those orchards are irrigated by surface water, so that's problematic. And the other thing too is that their right to farm, even though that's on the plat, this testimony that I believe is credible, that's substantiated by the ag industry that the county involved in, is that even the development that's there from 1948, 49, or other factors is interfering with their ability. They are trying to accommodate, but to stop spraying, to have to work with wind drift, to mitigate the conditions of agriculture. Agriculture at some level must be protected by the board, which is laid out in our comprehensive plan. And it is these decisions that are put in juxtaposition with one another that are in direct conflict, is interfering with the testimony that we've heard. And I'm going to defend the ag component of it and bring the attention back to the issue that's before us. This is about upholding our comprehensive plan. We do not have anything that overcomes the information in the staff report to overturn planning and zoning decisions.
Were you finished?
Not really.
Okay, and I have some things I want to say too.
So I wanted to continue on with this because I am torn in this. I have not made my mind up on this. This is not a black and white issue, as some people would like it, think it is. There's a lot of gray in here. And the determination factor with a board like this is to weigh the values of those gray areas and see which direction this goes. I do not believe that if the subdivision goes in, it's going to totally destroy the orchard. I do not believe that at all. I've seen these kind of things happen, and people tend to coalesce on one side or the other. Well, they always coalesce on one side or the other. And it's always disaster over here or failure over here if it's not. So, and the actual reality of the outcome is somewhere in the middle, always. But we got to hear both sides of this. And so then we have to make a determination of the gray area in the middle. The comprehensive plan is there to help us, but it's not formalized in concrete. Comprehensive plan is there to help guide us. And it is there, and it is a good work, and we are working on updating that plan here very soon. Madam Chair, this document here that you handed to me is is another document that talks about approving this, right? Is that what you handed me? Because this again says.
I thought that was the one that you were reading from.
Well, this is a much this one has June 6th on it. This one has June 10th on it.
Oh.
So there's a couple. Anyway, we've got a couple different options here. We've not adopted either one, which has been shown to be very true. But we've got different conclusions, findings of fact, and we have to determine which one we want to approve, right? And so I'll just address a couple of the things that I'm thinking about. I understand the desire of this developer, of this property owner, to provide his initial impetus, as I understand it, was to provide some areas where his and other people's agricultural workers could actually own property out in the country and continue to work on those farms and not have to commute from Caldwell or Nampa or some city area. That's an admirable goal. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I've said on the record I like that idea. And the thing that makes this work really is that I think it's called the Rural Residential Financing Program, which is the federal government program. That's what makes this work as affordable, and that's not available within a city. It would not be available. So that's an important piece of this. Give me a moment to review some of the notes I wrote down here. I grew up on a cattle ranch, and we didn't have fruit trees. Well, we had fruit trees. My dad was he was a hobby orchardist. He had apple trees and stuff back there, and some pears and cherries and all that kind of stuff. So I understand all the work it takes to keep those things bug free, and I appreciate that. And really, I was certified as an applicator back then because I did most of the weed spraying on our when we were ranching about 3,000 acres at that time. And I understand wind drift, and you don't want wind drift on any kind of spraying project. It doesn't matter if it's fruit trees or wheat or a pasture where we're trying to kill Russian knapweed. You don't want your spray to drift into areas that it's not intended to cover. Off of that, that's a given. Man, I understand that. That's bad juju. That's poison stuff. You don't want it to go where it's not supposed to go. I understand, and Steve, I really appreciate what you talked about, the issues that you faced over the years. You've been managing the orchard there with foot traffic and motorcycles and theft of materials, and man, that's always there. And I don't know if it's just related to the growth in the area or just related to people that have wrong values. I don't know. I think this project would probably not add to that just because it's contained and surrounded by a privacy fence that really kind of helps to keep people away from the orchard project. And I really do believe that I would put into if this is approved, that I would put into a development agreement that you can't put any fruit trees in that area because that's obviously a problem. You don't want cross-pollination to occur. And I guess let me get back over here. And I appreciate Mr. Hume's comments. I do have to say that it did occur to me while you were speaking that, and maybe it wasn't intended this way, but the letter that we received from you initially did say, well, we would be okay with this if you put these conditions on there. And it wasn't that it was totally incompatible. It was that it's compatible if you do these kinds of things, but we still have, and I acknowledge that you would still have concerns with it. I acknowledge that. So I've read all this material. I'm still trying to make my mind up here. I'm weighing all sides of this. I am in the middle right now. I could go either way, really. I do believe in the affordable housing aspect. I do believe in preserving farming. I grew up raising cattle with my dad and my brothers and my sister and our partner out there, and raised all our own hay, raised all our own grain and wheat and oats to feed them. And I understand that whole thing. And I understand protection of that kind of activity. I also understand the protection of private property rights. And I think there are some of those things we have to take into consideration as well. So, Madam Chair, I'll end with that for now.
Okay, I will. I have some things that I'd like to say. I felt a little bit like Mr. Hume, that you are a little scolded by that too. And I just want to say, I hope that you're still there listening, but don't think for 1 minute I don't know how overwhelming the opposition is to this request. I've received all the emails, and I think some 70, how many exhibits, and probably more than 2/3 of them are opposition and stuff like that. So to insinuate that we haven't read them, or we're not paying attention, or we're not seeing them, I felt just a little scolded somewhat like Mr. Bullock. So, but that's okay. You're not here, and so I'm not giving you a chance to defend yourself. But anyway, I've tried, as a commissioner, I've tried to condition this project to address concerns. I asked for fencing, and as we found out in testimony today, it would be the only thing, only project, only housing area out there where there'd be fencing. Nothing else is fenced. There's a road. Well, can that road count as part of the 100? I don't know. I'm not doing any of that kind of stuff. But anyway, the fencing, the lighting, we've got lights in the yard lights, that sort of a thing too. We did trees, and Commissioner Dale said, well, we'll say even no fruit trees, and we'll do, you know, this and that. Fencing, it's not going to mitigate the spray and the wind and all of that, but it doesn't mitigate it with any of the ones that are there already anyway. I mean, and there's none of you back there that are sitting there going, you know, you know that too. But it's a concern. But that doesn't make it any less of a concern for you. And the water issue and the other wells that are there, I'm sorry, we're not in a position to take care of that, Barbara. I'm sorry. I wish we could. I wish the county had the money in the indigence department to do. Unfortunately, we're spending so much on mental holds and sicknesses and surgeries that people can't take care of, that to take care of wells and stuff like that, I don't know, maybe that would be good someday to lobby for. So, but I want to say, in all of my years, I had 4 years on planning and zoning for the city of Nampa, and almost 10 years with the city council, and I'm wrapping up or getting close to the end of my 3rd year here. So whatever the math is on that, 17 or so, 16 something. I have never had such diversity ever in the responses that I've received on this. I've never seen such diversity there, and it's all opposition. And it's from industry, it's from vineyards, it's from dairies, it's from professionals, it's from lawyers, housewives, college students, volunteers. I don't know if you're an orchard person. I just said orchardeers, so I don't know what you're called.
Orchardist.
What are you called?
Orchardist.
An orchardist?
Orchardist.
Okay, orchard owner. So I mean, I've never had such a diverse response, all of it in opposition. And I don't want I don't want this to turn into this is not affordable housing or whatever. That's my opinion, and I'm just one of a board of 3 that has to come together to one decision. But this doesn't have any, this is no opinion of the individual, the trust family, and what they're wanting to accomplish. I have tremendous respect and admiration for an individual that wants to get a piece of land and use it in a way that will benefit and let people have home ownership. I think it's wonderful, and I agree. Young married couples today, and it's out of sight. So I don't know what will happen. We don't want it to do what it did last time, but we want it to somewhere find some balance and get realistic on it. But I'm looking back at what we are charged to do when we do land hearings and that sort of a thing. And I appreciate the information that came before us. I appreciate the testimony. I appreciate mostly the patience it's not been easy. I will only speak for TJ, and I don't know. I'm only speaking for him because I read his body language. I've not talked to him about this, but it's not been easy. The patience is required. He's an energetic person, and he does a lot of planning and stuff and comes before this board on many occasions. but when I look at the comprehensive plan amendment criteria, and then I turn the page and I look at the rezone criteria and all of that, one big thing that I've always based my decisions on is compatibility. And yes, there's housing around here, and but it's 48 and 49 and 70s and that sort of a thing. And yes, I want to see affordable housing. But I think it was Mr. Bullock that said, there or somebody that said that if this is the right place or the right time, and if it's not, you know, help us find it. Well, I wanted affordable housing. I want affordable housing, but this isn't the right place. This isn't the right place. The compatibility issue of it is not just because there's houses there or anything like that. It's the compatibility issue of it. I mean, from it's not. There is. I've never seen such diverse opposition, and they haven't been. It hasn't been mean or nasty or accusing or threatening or anything like that. It's been very reasonable, very thought out, and very organized, the opposition that people have to this. And it's just, they're almost 100% down to, I mean, all of them, the volunteers, the orchard owners, and the industry, the professionals, down to the truck driver. It's all been, this is ag. It's ag. And those other houses, I would say that I don't know. 48 and 49. That's some time ago. That's before my time. Boy, that's a good thing to say. And so, but this isn't the right place. And when you consider the surrounding land uses, is the proposed land use more appropriate? No, but even because it's not even compatible with what's there existing. What's there existing? No, it's not. And so, and that question is in both of the decisions we have to make with the rezone criteria too. Is the proposed zoning map amendment compatible with surrounding land uses? And I'm sorry, but it's even with what's around it, it's not compatible with the existing houses. It's not compatible with the orchard. It's not compatible. And I don't know, I can't remember. It was Dorsey was the one who had the property, and I can't remember if that was Orchard when Dorsey's had it or Vineyards. I don't know what it was, but it was still ag. It was ag, and so I as much as I want, I recognize we need affordable housing, and whether it's for farm workers, or it's for station attendants, or it's for truck drivers, or Fred Meyer employees. I don't care what they do. We need affordable housing for people in this valley, but this isn't compatible. This isn't the place that is compatible for that. So did you have more to say?
Yeah, Madam Chair, and I really did, and I'm telling you all as honestly as I can, I'm in the middle on this thing because I see both sides. I really appreciate the compatible issue that has been brought up here, and as I zoom out, I'm looking at the satellite vision of the whole area right here on my little iPad. I can turn it around. The people on the telephone, I hope you can see this.
They can't. I'll answer that.
Oh, they can't see it. Okay. You know, I want to say yes to this, but when I look at when I look at the area, the 111 houses, I acknowledge that they're already there, but they're the anomaly here. This area is predominantly, except for those two rather high-density areas, everything else is pretty much ag out there. So, and I think, Madam Chair, you helped me with that clarification on that. I appreciate that comment that you made there. So I'm not going on anymore.
I just wanted to say I appreciate your analysis and going back to what the board's been charged with. I know in the tenure that I have that when we make policy-based decisions, it takes the emotion out of it and it just focuses back on what it is that we're charged to do in these hearings. And I appreciate you tying that back. I think you're spot on. And I appreciate Commissioner Dale's support of that. Unless there's more discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
I do have to tell you though, Commissioner Van Beek, I don't know, maybe you meant that I was very emotional about it.
No, I didn't mean that.
I mean, but I am.
Oh.
I am.
Well, there you are.
Yeah, there you go. I want affordable housing. And this is a tremendous idea. This is a tremendous idea. We've got to find the place where this individual who wants to see this accomplished for our citizenry, we got to find the place and we got to, and so we'll work on it that way.
And I appreciate your heart. Thank you for making that clarification. As District 1 Commissioner, then I'm going to move that we deny this application as presented for the Coach Family Trust at OR 019-0002 and RG 2019-0004.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
No, I'll just talk again. I've been doing this stuff for longer than I should, probably 24 years, and none of these are easy. None of these things are easy. Some of them are easy. Let me back that up. Some of them are cut and dry, black and white, easy decisions. But most of these that involve lots and lots of people become complicated, convoluted, and lots, as I mentioned before, lots of gray areas. I can see, I really appreciate the Trost family wanting to do something good in this area, wanting to do something good to help people own their piece of land and raise their families and do that kind of stuff. This is not going to pass today, but I want to say I appreciate the efforts that people have gone to try to make this work. And again, I said I wish I could vote for it, but today I don't think I'm able to based on all the testimony that I've heard and the compatibility issue as I look at this area. So thank you.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Tricia?
Yeah, I was going to suggest we buttress the findings with the testimony from the hearing today and bring this back. Monica's looking at the 12th of August. There's a HEC hearing, and I didn't know if there was time before or after that.
Good after? About an hour scheduled for that.
Yeah. Oh, another week? Okay, I'm sorry, I meant to ask Zach first, but.
Add another week today?
Yeah, let me see what's on the schedule.
About 11 a.m. on August 18th.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you from today.
Yeah.
Now say that again, Monica.
11 a.m. on August 18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need a motion. We'll just bring that back.
We just bring it back.
Get it on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those of you that joined on WebEx, we appreciate your time this afternoon very much. Thank you for joining us. Those of you that are in this room, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and share with us. We appreciate you very much. That will conclude this meeting. Thank you, Monica.
That's a hard one.